Hey guys, Blake Haw here to talk about the Coen Brothers, No Country for Old Men. This is their Best Picture winner in 2007, and right off the bat, I'm honestly amazed a film like this even won Best Picture. I just think it has such something of an experimental edge to it in the way that the story's told. Very much foreshadowed, I think, how most films were directed from the 2010s. Where it's very visually story told. It's not a lot of explaining. It just kind of puts you right in situations, and it just the visuals do the talking. And it was just incredible. I love that. But I think the Coen brothers were one of the. I think this film was one of the first to really utilize that particular type of storytelling in film. It wasn't on the big films, at least. But what still grabs me about No Country for Old Men is that it's not a horror film. It's really more of a thriller, neo-western, but it feels like a horror film. This is something I think this and There'll Be Blood, both films that came out this year, often compared. That's the element those two really have in common for me, where they're not actually horror films. But they feel like one. It's just the way that it's told in different ways. But I think for this one, it just mostly comes down to the Javier Bardem as Anton Chigurh. This guy's a psychopath, absolute psychopath. One of the most terrifying, one of the most pulse-pounding, horrifying guys you'll ever see in a film. And whenever his presence is there, you feel like you're in the force of just a purely nihilistically evil person. Like, this guy is just, nothing phases this guy. There's no explanation, rhyme, or reason of where this guy even came from or why he is the way he is. He just is. He is pure evil. I mean, he comes in here and if you inconvenience him, if you even cross his path, he'll probably shoot you. Like, he's very, very terrifying. He's always looming over the film, and he's, despite the fact, technically the title doesn't even refer to him; it refers to the sheriff, Ed Tom Bell. Anton Chigurh is probably the character you're gonna remember the most about the film, just because it's such a memorable psychopath that he plays. And I mean, every single scene that he's in, it'll instantly grab you. He's just got a very shocking presence. It's so neutral, straightforward, but once you see what he's capable of, it's overwhelmingly terrifying. And I think some of the best scenes that involve, I think the best scene of the whole film is this gunfight scene that him and Llewellyn Moss, played by Josh Brolin, get into. There's an extended gunfight sequence through this hotel, where they're running around, and you just always feel like Anton's gonna have the upper hand, and it's always kind of insane whenever Llewellyn actually does have like a standing chance, and they're actually equally matched, in this gunfight sequence, and it's really insane. There's an amazing scene with Carson Wells, played by Woody Harrelson, where Anton meets with them, and he ends up shooting him down. In this really crazy scene, he's trying to get this money back, and the fact that he was just inconvenienced makes him want to shoot him. Like, he wants to kill anybody who gets in his way. It's really an intense protagonist he plays. And it's really not just him that makes this movie so amazing. I mean, every single character, every actor really brings a special touch and quality to this film. For Ed Tom Bell, this is what the film's really about. I think, the title No Country for Old Men actually refers to him. He's played by Tommy Lee Jones, and I couldn't imagine anyone else playing a role like this. Just a worn-out, cynical old man. I think that Tommy Lee Jones is made for those kind of roles, and he plays them so great. So it's really a perfect performance. It's all about him. The movie's about him, really. It's about him just in his jaded ways. He's, and near the end, he has a monologue where he talks about how he thought that God would come into his life someday, but he never did, because everything he has to see, he's constantly just witnessing a force of evil greater than he can possibly understand or fathom. So he's just kind of at a point in his life where he just wants to give up on it. It's just like the world's just kind of getting worse. An evil force is just, stronger than ever. So, hence No Country for Old Men. Then Josh Brolin as Llewellyn Moss is just awesome. I mean, he's really cool. There's a part where he describes Anton as the ultimate badass, but the truth is he's kind of a badass too. Getting that gunfight sequence, he owns his old ground just as well. And in that moment he does, at least. It's kind of crazy. You'd think that anyone who would cross Anton would immediately have the upper hand, but Llewellyn actually stands up to him in this whole scene. I think it's pretty incredible. The whole scene's one of the most well-directed, incredibly told scenes. I should add on that. And I especially love the secondary characters. Again, Carson Wells by Woody Harrelson always stands out to me. He's just kind of this cocky, suave kind of guy. You'd think he could talk his way out of anything until Anton guns him down in that scene. I love that part. But yeah, I love Woody Harrelson in this. He's awesome. Carla Jean Moss is also great. She's played by Kelly MacDonald. She's really, really a sweet presence. It's really like, you feel so sorry for her and everything she has to put up with, but she kind of seems to have this just sort of endless. I just like her. She's really a sweet character. Really, really just awesome and charming. Very charming. Yeah, there was just a lot of thought that went into the casting in this film, and it just shows in every scene. Like all these actors just really stand out in their particular performances. You know, I can't remember the actor's name, but I love the character Wendell. That's Ed Tom's sidekick. He's kind of this quirky. You can tell he's a little younger of the two, but like I love his performance also. I love the way he bounces off. It's like a younger perspective bounced off with an old cynic. Um, and another thing that's so interesting about this film is the way that it's contrasted whenever you compare it with the novel. You know, I've read the novel, and it's like almost a spot-on adaptation. It takes about every single layer and element of the novel, and it just translates that to film. You know, and I'll admit I'm more of a film guy than I am a reader, in all honesty. But I by far think the film is better and more enjoyable. I think it literally just takes the source material and it only improves on it, really. And it's still a great book, though, too. I mean, but the Coens just adapt it so phenomenally. You know, there's like, you know, the film has a lot of long stretches of silence. It really lets all these scenes breathe. You know, and I mean by silence, I'm talking like dead silence. I mean, there's just going to be, there's no music in the film. There's virtually no soundtrack whatsoever. Maybe a little piece in the end credits. That's about it. You know, there's an opening credit sequence in the menu of the Blu-ray also that, you know, I feel like that sums up the film's tone really well, but it's minimal in its soundtrack. I love the minimalist storytelling this film does. I think it's really incredible and it really impactful. It really makes this film feel very unique because most of the time when I watch films, I'm actually very soundtrack centric. I'm very driven by a soundtrack that matches well with the film. But this is one of the rare exceptions where I think I couldn't even picture music in a film like this. You know, it's like the dead silence really gives it a certain ambience. Makes it that much more intimidating, kind of. There's like of a nihilistic tone, I would say. I would describe the film as an exploration of nihilism in general, you know, just indifference towards death, indifference towards just all of these just, you know, horrific mysteries, you know, just like completely numb to it. I love all these songs. You know, there's a lot of long shots of like bedrooms, abandoned cars, you know, motel rooms. I just never really get tired of seeing these kind of scenes. There's just always this element of like, you know, kind of like a small town, kind of folky kind of setting. And I don't know, it's just endlessly entertaining too. Just whenever you watch Llewellyn Moss and, you know, trying to hide out from Anton, trying to have the upper hand in all these scenes, he's always, you know, and they're like really smart, like calculated people, you know, it's like they actually have really thought out ways of trying to hide out or trying to, you know, keep Anton from finding the briefcase, you know, or tricking him even. There's always head games they play with each other. But again, I should also add, it's funny because, you know, this is the part that's by far the most exciting scenes. These are the scenes that dominate the story. The whole story of Anton trying to hunt down Llewellyn Moss dominates the film. But the A plot really is about the sheriff. Just the sheriff and his existential crisis of just, wow, like this is an evil world. And he's just, you know, he's worn out, never found God. He's just ready to give up. You know, then I also have to mention the very ending. I love the ending of this film. It's very ambiguous. You know, and it may not make a lot of sense at first, but I think that once you really take it in after watching it, it really has such an impact. How else are you going to close a film like this? A film that's kind of bred in sort of just an exploration of nihilism. I mean, the film just really wants to end also open-ended. It's about a dream that perhaps never really goes anywhere. You know, and it just kind of all goes right back to the same point of, you know, just this kind of nihilistic sort of tone, indifference, really, you could say at this point. You know, just jaded, long past the point of return. But yeah, it's open-ended, but hey, that's kind of what makes it stick. You know, this is a film I couldn't imagine it having a neatly tied in. Like, I think a film like this needs to be loose. Anyway, yeah, that's No Country for Old Men. This is spectacular. I mean, of the films that came out in 2007, I'm actually slightly, I hate even comparing in a way, but There'll Be Blood, I think, is the one I'm slightly more gravitated to. Because I'm a little bit more, I'd say, overall, I think I'm mostly drawn to that kind of Savian, Kubrickian kind of filmmaking. But No Country for Old Men is actually just as perfect of a film. And it's just awesome. A film like this actually won Best Picture. I think this is one of the very best Best Picture winners. Might be the best one I've seen. It's up there with the, you know, great ones of the 70s, Godfather, Cuckoo's Nest. But yeah, if you haven't seen No Country for Old Men, do yourself a favor and check this bad boy out. It's a beast of a film. It's no one of a kind. Even if you've seen it, highly recommend a rewatch. There's so many layers to the directing. You know, it's one of the most detailed films as far as its visual storytelling. You know, and it's plain unique. It's really unlike anything else. So yeah, that's No Country for Old Men. Check it out. Have a good one, guys. Next, I'm going to be diving into Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. This kind of got me in the mood for some horrors. Now we're going to get all the way with that. And take care, guys. Until next time.